then Kira, I'll throw it over to you to kick things off for us today, and I'll sadly turn down the Taylor Swift as much
as much. I mean, I love Taylor, just absolutely love it. But thank you so much. I'm Kira McClellan, Senior Manager of Women's Markets at Westpac, and I have the absolute privilege of working on Ruby Connection. I'm so stoked to be here again for the next installment of PepTalkHer and Ruby monthly webinars. Talk about celebrating absolutely incredible women on this platform. To say that I'm excited about this discussion would be a total understatement. I had the absolute privilege of meeting Sally and Maha in my first few weeks of starting this role many, many years ago. And I have watched in absolute awe of their achievements, their grace, their tenacity, and you girls are just the absolute salt of the earth. Beautiful. Total fangirl over here, of course. So thank you. Thank you for supporting Ruby for all these years and for being part of the discussion today. For those of you who are joining us for the first time today, Ruby Connection is Westpac's online community for women. It's a place where we get to continue to have great conversations like this, and we really want to focus on building all the financial confidence of all women. So jump on over and stay connected via the website and all our social channels. So thank you, enjoy today, and back to you, Meggie.
Thanks so much, Kira, and a big hello to everyone who is joining us from all around Australia. So if you want to just pop in the chat where you are joining us from today, that would be awesome. I can tell you, I know that there's someone joining us from Kingscliff today because that's my mum, and I can see that. So hi, Mum. But it is such a privilege today to have Maha and Sally joining us. Ladies, I'm so excited. So I thought we'd just kick it off. You co-founded SWIISH, but I want to take it back to the start. Tell me, what was it like growing up, the two of you as sisters?
Well, we have a 5-year age gap, and what are you going to say? I'm older. She's older. She's always quick to tell that I'm older. So I have a 5-year age. There's a 5-year age gap between us. So I think we were quite close. I think when we were younger, and then we kind of went through a period where we were not I think it's like when I'm 13 and it's all about like pop bands and boys, and Maha's still 9 and I'm like, you're a child.
And I just want to hang out with you all the time.
And I was like,
and you're like, that's...
My younger sister's embarrassing.
That's not cool.
So we kind of had, I think, a little kind of, I think a few years kind of where we sort of weren't that close. But then once we sort of got into our 20s, and we're working, I think the age gap seems to really sort of diminish. And we were always close. We're very different, I think, in our personalities, in our strengths, in our weaknesses. But in a way, I think it makes us, it helps us get along.
Yeah. And I think as well, like we always, in a weird way, because there's only the two of us in our family.
Yeah.
So we were always kind of forced to play together as kids. And we actually used to pretend some, school holidays, no Netflix around back then, but so we wouldn't have a lot to do. So we'd pretend that we had like a business, and we'd set up a table and we'd sit across from each other. We'd get some paperwork and we'd just
hand each other manila folders, like just back and forth. Like, have you got the file? Yes, I have the file. And we'd hand the file. I need the file. I get the file. I mean, it's very sad, actually.
So who knows? Maybe in some way we were kind of manifesting what was to come.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. And I also love it, by the way, just in the few minutes that we've been chatting before the session, you basically finish each other's sentences, which I love. And it's funny that you used to play office as little kids, because I remember I've got a sister who's 3 years younger than me, and we used to play cleaning ladies. Like you were playing office ladies, we were playing cleaning ladies. I'm not sure what that says, but it's interesting.
I think our mum would have preferred we were playing cleaning ladies.
Yeah. More helpful.
More helpful. Yeah.
And so it's interesting. So I did a poll today, a very scientific poll on the PepTalkHer Instagram. So of 12,000 people, 25% of people reckoned they could run a business with their sister. Everyone else was like me and was like, no deal, like disaster. And again, my mum's on the call and I know she's just sitting there shaking her head going, that is a shocking idea for Meggie and Ursula to even think about it. But it's worked really well for you. So like family and business can be a bit dramatic, but you've managed to keep it relatively smooth sailing, or is that just a facade?
Oh, look, we fight. Yeah. We still argue quite a lot, but I think in a way because of how the business started and being kind of born out of Sally, you know, having cancer and being unwell and recovering from that, in a way, that was such a great life lesson that really you just don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And I think so, you know, if that maybe hadn't have happened, we probably would fight a lot more than what we do.
Yes.
But we've kind of learned, like, at the end of the day, our relationship is, you know, more important
Than anything else.
I
I think too, maybe also because we've come into it and we're older, I suspect had we been, for example, starting this and like, you know, Maha's 21 and I'm 26, we also were different people then. I also think part of it is that as we have gotten older, we also really respect the other person's strengths. We also don't overvalue our own strength. And I think there's something in that, because if you think you're better than the other person or smarter or you offer more or whatever, it doesn't set up, I think, a really equal, strong bond from the get-go. So I think that's been a big factor. I think also, sorry about all the noise, if you can hear that, there's some construction happening at our end.
Someone on the roof.
Sorry.
But
I think the other thing too is that all we care about, besides our relationship at the end of the day, it's our customer.
Yeah.
And so we check our ego at the door, and it doesn't matter whether I have an idea that's better than hers or she has an idea that's better than mine. We don't keep score. We also don't keep score about how much work we do. You know, it's not like, oh, well, I did this, so now you have to do that. It's like we don't keep a tally sheet. We all just do absolutely whatever we can to look after our customer, to move the business forward, and look after our team.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. It's such a good ethos to have. And I want to dive into why you started the business for people who are not aware of your story. Sally, we were just saying before this started, we actually met close on 10 years ago when there was a fundraiser, because you'd gone through a huge life change. Do you want to just share with the audience about what was sort of the catalyst for you starting SWIISH?
So I was pregnant, and the day before I gave birth to my first child, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was stage 3 breast cancer of the triple negative kind, which is quite rare. It's very hard to treat, and the odds were really bad. And it was kind of, because I was pregnant, it was quite accelerated, etc., etc. And so they basically made me give birth, and I started essentially what was a bit over a year and a half of treatment. I did, you know, chemo, radiation, I had multiple surgeries. And I guess and I didn't know whether I would survive, and they were kind of saying you probably won't make it, etc., etc. And I think I really started to think about, if I live, what do I want to do, and how do I want to give back, and what I think that this began. Like, I really value what it feel good inside out, and that was essentially, I guess, for us, the cornerstone of why we set up SWIISH. And you know, we've never deviated from that being our absolute mission.
And it is all about wellness and looking after yourself on the inside now. And so I guess it's interesting as well, like what would your advice be for people on the call today who are either in business with family and finding that quite stressful, or who are having a stressful period in either their employment or in their own business, right? Because of the current economic crisis. It's among the most heartbreaking situations someone could ever be in. And now, I guess on reflection, you've managed to turn that into, I guess, a silver lining, if we can call it that. So I guess, what would your advice be based on what you've learned for people who are going through a really hard time right now?
I think the thing I would say is you have to feel all the feelings. Like, I know people are very big on, like, you should be positive, and even if you're going through a hard time, I kind of like, yes, but also if it's a really shitty time, it's a really shitty time, and you should acknowledge that it's terrible. And if you need to cry, or if you need to get professional assistance, or if you should go through all of those things. I really kind of am a believer that you're going to come out the other side if you walk through the tunnel first, and in the tunnel it's very dark. And I think it's okay to go through that. So it's sort of like, go through that, and hopefully when you've been through it, you can then look back and go, okay, what do I want to take from this? But it's hard to find it when you're in the dark. When you're in the dark, you've just got to concentrate on yourself, on getting through, on trying to just manage it as best you can. And then when you get out, you can look back and go, how have I changed? What have I learned from this? What do I want to do? You know, I think I'm not a sugarcoater.
I think it's like that, being kind to yourself,
Yeah.
you know, and being able to sort of give yourself, even if it's like one small thing that you do or look forward to or whatever it is,
Yes.
to then just like, that's your thing. And it's almost that self-care.
Yeah,
you know.
through the worst of times, self-care is the most critical.
Yeah.
And it was when you were going through the worst of times that you actually came up with the idea of the business. And I think, Maha, what was your response when she sort of put that out there?
Meggie, she called me from the hospital after a surgery and was like, I've got this great idea. Right. I'm like, okay. She says, I think we should start a business, and I think it should be about all the things that we love, and I think it should be about, given everything that's happened, about wellness, about fashion, and I'm like, are you high? Are you still heavily medicated? Like literally out of surgery. And she said, no, but I really wanted to focus on, after, I need something to kind of look forward to and something to focus on. And I was like, okay, well, let's talk, but just get better for now.
Yeah.
And then let's talk.
But we did it.
But we did. Yeah. So it was definitely like, born out of that.
Definitely. And I think that helps us. We understand, we're normal people. We go through normal things. Yes, we have a business, and yes, maybe we have a role in the public eye, but we're very much normal women. We've been through IVF, I've been through cancer, I've been through surrogacy, we've been through fertility issues. We are just normal women dealing with normal issues that we all go through.
And you are very open about your personal life and your business life in the public eye through your social media. And for people who don't already follow SWIISH, you definitely should, and it's with double I. And I should mention as well that we actually have 2 $500 vouchers. So make sure you stick around. We're going to be wrapping up in about 15 minutes. And Kira is going to announce those winners for us at that point, which is very exciting and very generous. Thank you to the SWIISH team for that kind donation. So I guess when you started the business, it wasn't really sort of in the roadmap necessarily that you had mapped out previously, but something that's really interesting and that was not planned was that I just found out before that not only are you Westpac customers, but that actually Westpac is kind of a big part of your life in a big way with you and your family, but also your partners as well. I think we've got a slight glitch on Sally and Maha's end. So something that I wanted to chat about, and Kira, I might get you to just jump in with me here on this one. One of the things that's really interesting about Sally and Maha is that they didn't necessarily have a lot of financial know-how, I suppose, when they started the business necessarily. So it's something that they've had to learn along the way. And Kira, I know that you work quite closely, and the team at Westpac actually works quite closely with the SWIISH team during the business growth that they've had over the last 10 years.
I think it's also about, ultimately it comes down to financial confidence, and, both of the girls do have a financial background in some way, shape or form. But I think when you're starting a business, it's about like going and building each other's confidence to take the leap. But I can see that the girls have just returned.
Sorry. First day.
You are good. Good.
In a new premises.
Sorry.
We're back.
What were you saying, Meggie?
You said something very interesting and then you cut out.
I'm sure it was extraordinarily interesting. No, I'm just kidding. No, we were just saying how, like, when you start a business, you sort of, honestly, I don't know about you, but when I started PepTalkHer, I have no idea what I'm doing. And you really are like making it up the whole way. And I was really interested to understand from you, how did you navigate that, particularly the financial side? Because I know that actually Westpac kind of seeps into every aspect of your life. And that was not the purpose of this webinar, but it's just a side note.
It's true. Well, the Westpac thing is absolutely true. So when I left uni, so I did a commerce degree, and as a part-time job while I was at uni, I worked as a teller at Westpac. And then when I graduated, because I did accounting, I had a job as an accountant at Westpac. But then you worked at Westpac.
Yeah, I was a bank teller at Westpac. Also, whilst I was at university, my home loan is with Westpac. My husband works at Westpac. So yeah, it's like it's definitely in the family.
Yeah.
My whole life. But I think as well, it's like people would often say when you start a business, you have to have a like a plan, a financial plan, a
5-year plan, a 10-year
plan. And we didn't have any of that.
No, I actually am not as much of a believer in a too big a plan, because I think you don't really know which way you're going to go until you get there. You know, it's kind of like saying, what do you want to eat 3 Thursdays from now? It's like, who knows? You might feel like chicken, you might want fish. Who knows? Like,
That's right.
it's too hard to tell. So I think
you're better off to just start.
I think there's only a couple of things you need to know from the get-go, you know, probably that are important. How will this business make money? You know, and whether or not you think there's a customer base for it, you might have an idea, you might not, you're not sure. Again, you won't know until you try. And we were talking about something that's always important, is like, are you going to self-fund it, or are you going to ask for people to chip in money and then you're going to pay it back? Like, the financial element is important. You have to probably think about that beforehand. And if you need to factor in that the business might not make as much money as you want it to, as quickly as you want it to. So do you have enough to pay for your bills and stuff like that? We always talk about that.
And I think, I mean, SWIISH started as a side bit, like we knew it was what we wanted to do, but we both had jobs while we were getting it off the ground.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you've got bills to pay. You know, aside from setting up the business, you've got your normal life bills to pay. So, you know, you do need to kind of take all of that stuff into account. And I think the thing that happens is, as you do start to sort of build the business, the expenses are generally greater than what you think they are. You're like, at the beginning, you're like, we can work from home, or it's just the two of us will only have our salary to pay. And then you realize, well, I need a website set up. I need, you know, someone to help manage the finances, or, you know, the bookkeeper.
I think that's right. The things that you think you're going to need, inevitably once you start, you need more than you probably thought you did. And also as the business grows, like, because I think you sort of think, oh, as long as I make enough money, I will take all that money. But actually you probably won't. There's a substantial amount that you'll end up spending on expenses, which is fine. You need that for growth. But I think also maybe as the business grows, the quality of support that you need costs more.
That's right.
Because that's just inevitable, you know. So that they're this kind of, I think, important things to kind of think about.
So we chose to bootstrap, and, you know, and for us that means we understand that aspects of our growth are going to take a little bit longer than they would have otherwise, because ultimately we have to make the profit to then reinvest into the business.
There's no investors for us.
That's right.
But that's our choice. You know, other people do it differently, and there's pros and cons both ways. You know, there's no one right way to do it.
And it's interesting. So I've actually bootstrapped PepTalkHer as well. And it's one of those things, there's so many pros and so many cons as well. Sometimes you're like, I wish someone would write me a multi-million-dollar check and I could hire all the people that I need. But one of the things that you've been really honest about is hiring, and how much of a challenge that is. And I know that about half of the people on the call here today have a business. And so they might have some staff, and that is a big challenge that everyone's mentioned in the polls. So what would your advice be around hiring, and some of the mistakes maybe that you've made that we could all learn from?
Oh, mistakes. We've made plenty of mistakes along the way. I would say a couple of things. There's no, is there a wrong hire? Yeah, probably there is actually. I was going to say there's no wrong hire, because ultimately everyone plays a part in the growth of the business, but that's not actually true. There are wrong hires. And in this is what I kind of think. I don't know if you think the same. I think the worst kind of hire is not an inadequate skill set. It's the wrong attitude is actually a worse hire than somebody who maybe has a great attitude, but you wish their skills were a bit better. I would hire for attitude, particularly in the beginning, when, like, I know when we didn't have as much money, and that's a really hard thing in the beginning, when you're like, I dream of getting, I don't know what a great example of a job is, but whatever, you know, but that person costs X amount of dollars. You're like, well, we don't even if we forego both of our salaries, which we did for many years, we still couldn't afford that person. So then you end up getting a more junior person. But there's a trade-off. But I think when you're hiring junior people, hire for a great attitude, because you can teach skills. You can send them off to be, I mean, my God, the internet is an amazing place. There's so much that you can learn online, and you can invest that time with a junior person. And I think that that's a better thing to do if they've got the right attitude.
But then as the business grows, I think then you have to start thinking, you know, if I can afford the person who's got the skills
set already
and who takes that away, because also when you start, it's like you're pretty much doing everything yourself.
Everything.
And if you can find the people that will either help grow it or help scale it or take it to that next level, then it's worth you know,
the investment.
I mean, most people say you should pay yourself first, but we've never done that. And so we
done
pay
that
ourselves last.
We do it last.
Usually there's not a lot left, but like, you know, but I think it's like we've done that on purpose because we care more about the growth of the business and the people that we do have. And I think the other mistake we've made sometimes is that when somebody's not working out, it's taken us too long to make a decision and cut ties.
Yes.
You know, we've tried to, and like I've got a 15-year career in HR, so I'm like, I want to coach, I want to help, I want to train, you know, I want to invest the time, I want to nurture, and I, you know, I want to turn it around. But sometimes you have to say, we've just got to cut our losses. It's just not working.
Yes. I think that's the one thing we probably wouldn't do again. We've done that a lot in the past, but actually that's a big mistake because you can't afford the time.
Yeah. It's like you try, you know, and then if it doesn't work, it's like, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
Those hard decisions. Absolutely. And listen, if anyone on the call has questions, please send them through. You can send them through on the chat or just DM them directly to me, Meggie Palmer, and we will get those answered for you. Now, the website is all about wellness and looking after yourself so that you can feel and actually be well and then, you know, live your best life, basically. This is an unprecedented time, and a big shout out to everyone in Melbourne. We hope that you are enjoying your newfound freedom. So I'm interested to know, like, what are your top tips for how to kind of beat burnout at the moment? Because it's such a stressful time for everyone.
Yeah, it's interesting because so many people have been saying to us recently that sleep is a real challenge. You know, so many people finding it really hard to switch off, really hard to sleep. I mean, our mantra is that wellness doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah.
You know, it should be easy,
delicious,
effective, affordable. And it doesn't have to be something that takes up hours. It's like you can do one small thing a day at either end of the day. And that can make a world of difference.
We always talk about, like, and I think pandemic especially, like 2020 especially, but most of the time, I mean, this year is unprecedented, but we should look after ourselves. And I do think, I know it's mostly women on this call, but I do want to say, like, I think as women, we tend to look after everyone else first and we put ourselves last. And we always talk about, like, if you can just do one small thing in the morning and one small thing at night that would just start your day well and end your day well, then at least, if nothing else, if all the middle kind of just gets kind of, you know, the day runs away from you, you had these two things, and we call it bookending the day. So we're all about, like, if you start your morning with like a shot of super greens, then at least you know that's your digestion looked after, that's your energy looked after, that's all your greens looked after, and you're like, okay, great. And then the whole day is a schmozzle, and then you get to the end and you're like, okay, I'm going to take my sleep powder because I need to sleep well. Because if you don't sleep well, like Maha said, your anxiety goes up, your hormones run wild.
Your immunity is compromised.
That's right. You know, there's all kinds of things happen. So you're like, okay, if I can just do these two little things, they're not a big deal. And we're not kind of fans of, you know, a 20-step program, because I just don't think it's realistic. I don't think we have time for it. So it's like, keep it easy, keep it simple, and make it effective.
I love that. I love that concept of bookending the day. That is so cool. Now, listen, we are going to be announcing the winners of the 2 $500 SWIISH vouchers in just a second. But I have a question for you about working together and then family Christmases. Talk me. How does that work?
Look, our husbands are I want to say they're super patient, because we do talk about work a lot. You know, we text each other a lot. We call each other a lot. Even though we spent the whole day together, we still speak a lot. And we will often, at any kind of family dinner, we'll kind of skulk off and we'll be like, you know what I've been thinking about, blah, blah, blah. And they'll be like, guys, you talking about work? We're like, no. And then we like skulk off in the kitchen. We'll just get some more turkey. And then we start talking again about work. So I think we've made a more conscious effort in the last maybe couple of years to talk less about work and cover off more personal time. But also that's a factor of the business growing, because in the beginning, you just have to, there's no time. You know?
Christmas we try to
have one day off
if we can. So yeah, but I mean, they are very patient, but we also really enjoy hanging out with each other, and that helps, you know. And we live 2 streets away from each other, and we hang out in our spare time
together.
Really, actually quite sad.
Yeah, it is sad.
Need to get some friends. But,
we do have friends, but they're used to it.
But
I think when you run your own business and you're bootstrapping, it's hard to find those lines. And we've got a couple of questions coming through here about how do you find that balance? And in particular at the moment with COVID, like how's that impacted the business and also your relationship? Has it made things kind of more tense for you?
I think it's definitely been a more stressful year. There's no question about that. And I think in terms of the business, what it has meant is that you've sort of got to micromanage on a day-to-day basis, you know. So I think in previous years, for example, you can go, great, in 3 months from now, why don't we do blah, blah, blah. Whereas the landscape this year was so foreign. We're all kind of just getting through the day and going, who knows what next week will look like? We just didn't know. And that's in terms of the economy, that's in terms of consumer sentiment. You know,
it was also about like logistics in the beginning and not knowing whether we would have to close or what would shut or our supply chain, you know, all of that kind of stuff as well. And, you know, what about our staff? And our main goal in that time was look after our staff, make sure nobody loses their job, look after our customers, you know, and try to help them as best we can. But it was, definitely stressful. And we kind of found we had to be more, like we're always responding to our community, like literally every message on Instagram we respond to, but we did a lot more Instagram lives to connect in and see how people were feeling, and
more expert series stuff. I think it's hard because you're stressed. You're also going through the pandemic. It's not like you're immune to it and you're in a bubble and everyone else is in a pandemic. It's like we're all in it. But I think at one point, maybe like I think when we kind of reached fever pitch, we were like, okay, why don't we just, let's try and calm down, and then let's just stop and go, what is it that our customer wants from us? Like if we were our customer, what would we want? We're like, we would want more lives. We would want to talk with experts about mental health or anxiety or about how to sleep or, you know, just whatever. So then I think we felt better when we stopped focusing on ourselves and we started focusing on our customer. And we're like, we can't control everything. In fact, we can control nothing. So let's just make sure we can look after them as best we can and our team as best we can.
I love that. And a lot of people are messaging me in the public message and also direct DMing me saying that it's so nice to hear about brands that actually care about their people and that really live their values. And I think that that's a credit to the two of you and the culture that you've built. And certainly it's in line with what the mission is of SWIISH, right? Around feeling well and doing good in the world. And so that's so interesting. And it was interesting, wasn't it, when COVID hit, you could tell the brands that were sort of feeling sorry for themselves. And I just sort of felt like it's actually, I think you're right, it was a time to be of service and to give back to your community rather than spiral into a negative mindset.
Totally. And it's like, we just wanted to make sure. It's hard because you're all kind of like, and I think that it comes back to what I was saying before, we're normal people, you know, we're like, you know, you'll find us at the supermarket. We don't have a chef or a butler. I don't have a driver as much as I wish I had one, you know, like we're just normal people, you know, so we're going through it as well, you know.
So true.
Well, listen, ladies, this has been such a treat, and a quick shout out to Rebecca Cherry, who is living her best life watching this session on a hammock. I love it, Rebecca.
Oh,
love it.
Rebecca. Love it.
Nice.
Absolutely.
It's good, isn't it? You've got to do it. You just have to do it. It's lunchtime.
Oh, so jealous, Rebecca.
Yeah, looks great.
And we're so excited. Kira has just sent me through the names. A huge congratulations to Jackie Ashby and also Samantha Wilson. We are sending you a $500 SWIISH voucher. So lucky you. I've been on the website the last couple of days looking for a gift for her birthday. So get involved. There's some amazing best-selling books on there and a whole heap of other wellness products that I know that you'll all love. So we will send around the link to the website and the books after this event as well. But please connect with the ladies on Instagram. Check them out. It's such good content. It's really uplifting and it tries to make me reduce my pasta intake and eat more green smoothies. So that's a good.
We still love pasta.
Still love pasta.
Maggie, we love pasta.
Just have the smoothie as well.
We love pasta.
You're fine.
And just so you guys know, SWIISH Wellness has an Instagram, as does SWIISH. So there's 2 Instagram handles there. So if you want more recipes and more wellness stuff, that's on SWIISH Wellness. Yeah.
Love it. Well, listen, ladies, what a treat. We could talk to you all day, but thank you for joining us. And also, Maha, a huge congratulations and all the best with the upcoming baby. We are so delighted for you.
Thank you.
Maha's
Thank
28
you so
weeks today, guys.
28 weeks.
Yay.
He's cooking nicely. So
It's a little boy.
It's a boy. Thanks, you guys.
Is so wonderful. And a big thank you to the community, the Ruby Connection community, for joining us today. It's such a great initiative from Westpac to bring so many amazing people together to connect around issues like finance, like business, and just life in general. So today's been a great reminder for all of us to bookend our day and to make sure to take care of ourselves, right? Because that makes everything else that little bit easier. It's been a delight, and we will be back the same time next month. We're going to be having a special event focused on NAIDOC Week, so stay tuned for information about that. And again, huge thank you to the SWIISH